Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to episode 4 of Morning Joe Schmoe. Salty was supposed to be joining me this morning, yesterday afternoon. She said she was available. I hope she's okay. I haven't heard from her this morning. So for the time being, it's just going to be me boring you, me watching myself bore you. Good morning, Forrest. Thanks for being here. Maybe just be me and you, bud. Andrea Burkhart's over there on her channel doing her Koberger hearing review, and there are a lot of people over there, which is fine. I get a little burnout. I mean, Salty and I just did a 2-part episode on her channel about the Koberger stuff. So, that is interesting. I'm not getting mine from Salty's channel either. I am not getting notifications when she goes live. I kind of wanted to touch on a couple of new things that came out this week. Obviously, the plane crash is one of the big ones. I didn't get to see the Washington, D.C. press conference when it happened live. I ran across it this morning, and it's got some interesting stuff in it. The guy from the Department of Transportation is there, and he talks a little bit about the weather and the flight pattern of the airplane. So I want to take a look at that first. And then there was a document that dropped this week in the Lori Daybell upcoming trial. It was actually filed by the state, and it was a request. It wasn't a motion. It was a request, but obviously similar to a motion, the judge is going to have to rule on it, and I imagine he's probably going to approve it because it's the same thing that they asked for in the hearings in December. So once again, I'm trying to track down Salty to see if she can come join me, because otherwise I know I'm pretty boring. She and I bounce off of each other pretty well, and we can work through ways that we disagree, and we both have open minds to see maybe new things that can come to light in these different cases that we're looking at. I've also got I must have missed it. So I had COVID after Christmas, and I wasn't all that with it. I don't remember seeing the news article that Sarah Boone was transferred to the Florida Department of Corrections, but she has been. I imagine that's a little bit different life than the county lockup was. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and play this press conference that the DC mayor gave yesterday morning. She went to something like Lowell. Let's see, I can just go ahead and pull that up now. I've got her inmate record, or her incarceration record. Somewhere around here. Sarah Boone transferred to Florida prison. So this was back at the end of December. There's no actual video that accompanies this article, but is an article by Ocala, Florida. Sarah Boone, the woman convicted of killing her boyfriend in February of 2020. So she was in county lockup for 4.5 years. A 6-person jury convicted her of second-degree murder October 2024. She was later sentenced to life in prison. Boone rejected a 15-year plea deal prior to her trial. Not a great idea. Boone was turned over to the Florida Department of Corrections to serve her life sentence shortly before 5 a.m. on Monday. So this is dated December 31st. So it was between Christmas and New Year's. She got transferred. And this article doesn't say where she got transferred to, but I do have her online record that says where she's at. Let's get this shared out. Post conviction. Where did that go? Gosh darn it, I can't keep track of all these tabs. I can't find it now. It's something like Lowell. Well, let's look it up. Let's go. Florida Department of Corrections inmate search. All right, I'm going to share this so we can all work through it together. StreamYard, share, vendor search, web applications. We're going to do inmate population information search. Come on. There we go. Boone. Sarah. Search and submit request. And there's only one. So there we go. Inmate population information detail. Department of Corrections, U72509, Sarah Boone. Current facility, Lowell Correctional Institute. I don't know what the I stands for. Lowell Correctional something or other. Oh, you can schedule a visit in English or Spanish. Where's Salty at when you need to go fill that out? Good morning, Pammy. Good morning, Pokemon. Thank you for joining me here. Right now this morning, it's just me. I can't track Salty down. So I hope she's okay. I hope everything is going okay. Or who knows, maybe she's over on Andrea's channel watching Andrea and her Coburger thing. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so that's where she's at. She got transferred there. Current release date, sentenced to life. And in Florida, there is no other option than for her to spend the rest of her natural born life in the Department of Corrections. That's the way it works in Florida. Life is life. I think she did file an appeal, though, if I remember right. She has filed an appeal. There were some filings on her court record in January. Steve did an episode, about the Lowell CI. Interesting. I wonder how it compares to Westville in Indiana. That's a good question. The last I heard from her was yesterday afternoon. So it's 24 hours, right? Good morning, 857. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Are there any prisons that aren't crappy? Probably those white-collar prisons. The white-collar prisons probably aren't as horrible as just the regular blue-collar prisons. So so we did the Sarah Boone thing. So now I want to do the plane crash. Just want to start up the press conference that they held yesterday morning. And if it gets too boring, we can end it. But the beginning of it was interesting to me. Plus, she gives tribute to the first responders that went out there in that icy river and tried to rescue people. I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome. Shows plane crash. Come on, where did that go? No survivors. Why am I losing my tabs this morning? Here we go. So the headline of this article, which was, where is the dateline on this article? Did they not do datelines? Oh, there we go. Updated 11 p.m. last night. So here's the presser.
Good morning. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. We are here at Reagan National Airport to provide an update on the tragic events of last night. I'm joined by U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, D.C. Fire and EMS Chief John Donnelly, American Airlines CEO Robert Eisen, The MWA, the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority CEO Jack Parter, United States Senator Mark Warner, United States Senator Tim Kaine, U.S. Representative Don Beyer, as well as the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Pamela Smith. And we are joined by first responders from across the Metropolitan Washington region. I speak for all of us when I say, and certainly all Washingtonians, how very sad we are for American Airlines, for the United States Department of Defense, and for all Americans for the loss of life that happened with the collision of these aircrafts. We know that includes families from across our region, as well as in Kansas and across the country. This morning, we all share in a profound sense of grief. I do want to thank the first responders who acted quickly last night, who ran towards danger, went into a very frigid river, and have worked throughout the night. Chief Donnelly reported in last night's briefing that we have a strong mutual aid agreement in our region, and those teams have worked together throughout the night in really tough and heartbreaking conditions, and we should all thank them for their heroic efforts. So we'll have several updates today. I'm first going to turn to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and then you will hear directly from Chief John Donnelly with a situational update.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Sean Duffy here, Secretary of Transportation. We wish we were gathering for different purposes today. I just want to let you know that the Department of Transportation, the FAA, along with the White House, President Trump, local, state, and federal partners, all working together on this incident in unison. I couldn't be prouder of this team that's been assembled, working tirelessly. Mayor, I want to thank you specifically for your work. A few details I'd like to give all of you, and some of you reported this, but last night, if you live in the DC area, you would know that this was a clear night last night. The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the DC area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in DC. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines.
See, that was pretty important to me because we have questions, you know, which of the aircraft was on the wrong flight pattern. He said clearly the American Airlines flight was in their standard pattern. So what does that leave?
An airline flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently with those two aircraft working together. As many of you have reported, we have located the two aircrafts. The fuselage of the American Airline plane was inverted. It's been located in 3 different sections. It's in about waist deep water. So that recovery is going to go on today as that recovery takes place of the fuselage of the aircraft. NTSB is going to start to analyze that aircraft, partner with the FAA with all the information we have to get the best results possible for the American people. I would just say that safety is our expectation. Everyone who flies in American skies expects that we fly safely, that when you depart an airport, you get to your destination. That didn't happen last night. And I know that President Trump, his administration, the FAA, the DOT, we will not rest until we have answers for the families and for the flying public. You should be assured that when you fly, you're safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mayor. I'm joined today with Fire Chief Bonnet from the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, and I'm John Donnelly, Chief of the District of Columbia Fire and EMS Department.
I think that's probably enough of this press conference. I heard a couple of things that I wasn't sure about before, but I definitely am now. Oh, she's no longer MIA. She's going to be coming up in a minute. Woohoo! Then I can stop boring you all by myself. We do have a pilot's opinion on what he thinks in Philadelphia. Obviously, it's a preliminary opinion, but we also have, hold on. Well, good morning, Salty.
Good morning. I'm home now and I can sit down and I am ready to true crime with you this morning.
Good deal. Good deal.
Yep. Just had to run a quick store errand earlier, but I'm good to go.
Good
Had
deal.
to
I'm
get
glad
that crap out of the
everything's
way so
okay.
I could just, I just wanted to get that store run out of the way. So guess what? Now the weekend is totally free and I don't got to do anything else except for what I want to do.
Nice.
But right
yeah,
before
so
I came on, so I'm sorry to interrupt again. Right before I came on, someone asked for your link. So I had to go grab your link real quick and drop it to them. So hopefully we'll see her in here soon.
all right, good deal. So we've actually hit on a couple of things this in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 20 minutes. Actually, I got a late start. Just real quick on Sarah Boone being transferred to Lowell between Christmas and New Year. So right before the end of the year, she got transferred to Lowell, and we just took a quick look at her inmate information population record, just so I could see exactly where she was at being Lowell. And
yeah, so she's still here in Florida.
right, for the rest of her life.
Yeah, so that should be where she's kept held now, unless she gets transferred for other reasons later on. That means
But
she's finished. Because in Florida, when you go through the system from jail to the prison, you go to an intake center. And so you rarely stay at your intake centers. You go to like the closest one to your area and you get processed through and into the system and everything. Then they field you out to whatever prison you end up going to. And so that's what's happening there. That's why she was moved.
right,
I'm
and
assuming.
I've heard,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard the intake process can take like 4 to 6 weeks, right? And that's
It can. Mm-hmm.
that's what we were
It
told in
usually
Richard Allen's
does.
case. It only took
Yeah.
like 48 hours to get him back to Westville.
Right.
Like,
Normally in Florida, it takes 4 to 6. I'm outside and the kids are getting loud. Guys, pipe down a little bit. Sorry. I warned them. But anyway, a friend of mine is Department of Corrections here in Florida and who works at an intake center. And she told me a long time ago that it normally takes 4 to 6 weeks. And she's the one that told me that it normally you don't get housed at that unit. Some do, but most are fielded out to other facilities from there. So I don't know how the Indiana process works because I don't understand nothing about Indiana. I'm in the Sunshine State.
well, other people who are familiar with Indiana intake say it's about the same. It should take 4 to 6 weeks, not so stinking 48 hours that it took.
No, I don't. I agree with that. There was no way that it only took 48 hours unless they had all his paperwork sitting on go. They never let him out of prison to start with. You know what I'm saying?
Well, aren't they supposed to do like a mental evaluation, a psychological evaluation?
They should. He should be
Yeah.
issued a prison number versus an inmate. While he was in, I don't know how they did it in Indiana. I didn't never think about it till just now. But like in the county jail, you're issued an inmate number, your DC number, whatever you want to call them. And then you get into the prison, you're issued a whole different number, right? Your prison number. So be curious to see if that number changed because he wasn't a prisoner technically. He was a county inmate, right? But
Right.
while being housed there, was he treated as a state prisoner and assigned? I don't know. Oh no. Yeah, Miss Sarah should have a nice ride right there where she's at for a while.
Yeah.
How do you think she'll conduct herself? Do you think she'll get in trouble like Susan Smith continued to get in trouble all the time? Do you think Sarah can contain herself? Because I don't think she can, guys. I think Sarah's in for a ride of her life. She's going to meet some women that she only thought she could with. Like, bitch, I'll put you in a suitcase. Oops.
Well,
So I
right.
said that. So.
Well, she was used to bullying around a smaller guy. He was only 5'2", 103 pounds. I mean, she's going to run into some ladies that are somewhat bigger than that.
Yeah. Well, she's going to meet a whole different breed of women when she gets into that prison system. For sure. I like to be a fly on the wall there for a hot minute. Good morning, guys. Welcome in. Thanks for joining Joe on his morning show here. Sorry for coming in late. Habitual attention seeker. That's a good way to describe her, Pammy.
Well, you think if she gets in a fight and she gets hurt in prison, the other lady's going to be like, I didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional.
They're not going to know who did it unless the guards see it.
Right.
And there ain't nobody going to snitch on nobody unless they're asking for it. But yeah, that shit all happened back there in the shower where the guard ain't looking.
So
Sarah
then
better be nice. Sarah better play nice is all I can. All the advice I can give her. Play nice, Sarah.
The rules are different in there. The rules are definitely
different. Way different than a county. And she might have had a little fan club or something there in the county, but that's not guaranteeing she's gonna have that way, in the state pen. So we'll see.
Yeah, and then we watched part of the press conference yesterday morning from Washington D.C. Secretary of Transportation gave some new information on that.
Okay, because I knew there was some that came down, but I had not heard yet what it was. And I know we covered it the other day on our my morning show we did. So yeah, I hadn't followed up on that yet. So they found out some stuff.
Well, he just made some generalized comments. First of all, they gave kudos to the first responders who went in there and got really cold.
Yes.
But then he said, and anybody who lives in the DC area knows last night the skies were clear. Last night, there wasn't any weather that was affecting that would lead to that crash. And he talked about normal flight patterns. And he said very clearly the American Airlines flight was flying its normal flight pattern. So whose fault was it then? Clearly the Black Hawk was not following a proper flight pattern. So CNN got a hold of a different camera angle of that collision, of that midair crash.
I saw something about that. I thought I saw it. Okay.
We're going to watch that now, and it's really short.
Okay, good.
But it's enlightening to me because you can clearly see the angle of the helicopter right when it hits the plane.
And breaking overnight, CNN has exclusively obtained 2 new videos offering a more direct angle and vantage point of the midair tragedy between the American Eagle's flight and the Black Hawk helicopter. A warning, these videos are difficult to see as we are also learning more about the 67 lives that were lost in this collision. This morning, the New York Times is reporting that the helicopter may have been flying outside of its approved flight path and higher than it should have been. We'll get much more to that. Let's get to the videos. The first video we want to show you,
actually coming from the left side,
that you see at the top is the American Airlines jet as it approached the runway. Then you see the helicopter flying directly into the frame and directly into the plane. Both aircraft immediately then crashing down into the Potomac River. The second video, it appears to be surveillance video from the airport and showing very same helicopter moving along the river as the plane approaches the runway at DCA, and then
just right into it,
and the explosion and into the Potomac River.
Who was piloting that plane, that Black Hawk?
Well, until the investigation is complete, they're not supposed to release any of that information. But our new defense director actually did a presser yesterday where he named the ranks of the people that were on board, which he's not supposed to do until the investigation is at least further along, and definitely I'm sure they probably already notified the family, so that it's not a notification of
Oh, I'm
families
sure.
thing. It's
You
an
know,
investigation thing.
it's an investigation thing. Look, I live in a heavily. We have so much military around here. You name it, we got it. And we've had helicopters crash right into the sound. You know, we've had a lot of things happen around here. We've had the fighter jet crash into a home, you know, different things. But when I first saw that footage and you can see that little dot of which is the Black Hawk going right toward that airplane that has a lot of lights on it, and they said this guy was flying higher than normal and different things, was something causing his aircraft to malfunction, which then threw him off. I'm not a flyer, so I don't know about piloting. I know that you can get your senses can become you know, affected in different things. I don't know if that elevation difference has, I don't know, you know, so it's going to be interesting to see how the investigation does play out. Something went terribly wrong that shouldn't have. It's so obvious.
It just flies straight towards it on an intercept
Yeah,
path.
that's exactly
Just
why
makes
I was
it
wondering
makes
who was piloting the plane, the Black Hawk.
no effort at all to avoid the collision.
None. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to have that kind of brain, but that's my first thought was, wow, it almost looked intentional.
Just
If that,
no
but I'm not
diversion
putting that
attempt at
out
all.
there. I'm just, in my own opinion, something about that just looked intentional, but yeah, I don't want to believe that either, Pokemon. That's why I'm like, I'm trying to be cautious with my words, but I can't help how I feel with, and you know, like, you can't really, we're only seeing footage of what appears to be, you know, and we can see the dots connecting and it boom, but it just doesn't appear like Joe said, no, there was no avoidance. Hey, are you okay? Hang on, guys. I'll be right back.
Somebody just had a mid backyard collision. It sounds like. Yeah, I don't understand how you don't take any avoidance maneuvers at all. It was a manned. The military tells us it was the defense director yesterday at his press conference named 3 or 4 military personnel who are on board. We're going to watch it one more time. Just boom. So I think at that one, we're looking at the American Airlines taking its approach to the runway, and we're seeing the taillights of the helicopter, maybe? Because that looks like, yeah, American Airlines is coming down at an approach angle. So we're seeing like the taillights of the helicopter there.
It looks like it.
And then the other one, we're seeing the helicopter on the left side. Looks like it's actually coming up just a little bit of a, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of an incline angle.
I mean, maybe he was going in that direction, not realizing he was headed the wrong way, like if there was an instrument problem. And then before it's too late, he realizes that, wow, you know, I mean, I don't know. Like, but you don't
Well,
see those lights, you know, you don't see you're approaching. Like, so that's why I'm wondering was there disorientation involved? Was there instrument panel issues? Was there a drone nearby that may have caused something to malfunction? I mean, I don't know.
right. And then last night we had a medical transport crash.
Oh no, those are the worst. With a medical patient on board?
Multiple medical patients, if I remember right.
Multiple medical patients.
Oh, I have video. Hold on, let me fix the audio. Start over.
We are following some breaking news right now out of Philadelphia, where a small plane has crashed into a neighborhood there. Take a look at that ball of flames. Our sister station in Philadelphia obtained this video from the scene. It shows parts of the plane wreckage on that street there. Now, here is a live look at the scene right now. You can barely make out the plane because there's so much response to this there. We are hearing that witnesses are reporting multiple homes and cars were on fire after the plane went down. And we're also hearing that there are several people injured. So this is going to be a long investigation going on in Philadelphia. At this time, it is unclear what led to this crash, or right now we do not have the victims' conditions as well. But our sister station in Philadelphia, they have reporters on the ground there, and we will, of course, get you all the updates we are getting and bring it to you throughout the newscast. This, of course, follows the mid-air collision in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, the nation's worst air disaster since 2001. Again, we will continue to monitor this situation and bring you the latest.
Well, so I've got a
Okay, sorry, I had to run these kids in the house.
you're all right.
Yeah, I was trying to follow along with that as best I could.
Yeah, they didn't give us a whole lot of news in that clip, but I do have a clip where they interview a pilot not associated in any way with this incident, but he has his opinion about it that is kind of interesting.
So it sounds like when they said small plane, that it was a medical transport plane with a team on board, medical team. Because you don't normally, unless you're like, if you're life flighting accident victims, you can get, when they life flighted my daughter, you can't get but only so many people on board these flights. And 9 times out of 10, it is the patient, the pilots, and your medical team that has to be on board to get the patient there. You know, because all the equipment and all the things that are in these transports, whether it's the plane or whether it's a helicopter. And they use both here because they fly kids to Gainesville all the time for different things, various surgeries or whatnot. So
and then they respond to car crashes and things like that too. Yeah.
Well, Life Flight does. We have a different transport for our medical patients that need to go from hospital to hospital. See what I'm saying?
Gotcha. If they need
My
to go
daughter
to like
wasn't,
a specialized hospital.
Right. Yeah. She wasn't life flighted like from an accident scene to the hospital. She went by ambulance, but then from the hospital, they arranged transport to Gainesville. And at first they wanted to send a helicopter, but the weather conditions didn't, want to cooperate. So then they sent the little plane. And then when the plane got here, it's probably one reason why I hate flying. I'm standing there in the hallway and I heard the pilot say, "We're operating on one wing." And I literally, I think I went dark at that moment. You know what I mean? But like, so what? What'd you just say? I didn't need to hear that. But they got there safely. But I'm just saying there's usually a team, of medical staff on board.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. But I think back in the day when I was a firefighter EMT, I think we had one helicopter that did both medical transports and responding to the scene of crashes and stuff. So one helicopter that did both. We had one helicopter in the whole county.
They're saying the Royal We says, pediatric patient and mom, 2 pilots, 1 doc. That's good they let the mom on board, but my God, bless their hearts. I hate to hear there was a pediatric patient and 1 medic, 1 doctor and 1 medic en route to patient to Mexico after treatment in Philly.
So here we have a pilot and flight inspector's opinion on the Philadelphia plane crash. So let's hear what he has to say, if it's even worth anything. Sometimes they'll interview these people and they'll just be full of it, but sometimes you can glean some useful information.
Continue to follow breaking news in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania tonight, where a private medical jet has crashed near a busy residential area and a shopping mall. You see the fireball there as it hits the ground. There are a lot of questions right now, still are, surrounding how this could happen just seconds after takeoff, less than 30 seconds. Joining us now with some insights is commercial pilot and flight instructor Robert Katz. Robert, thank you for doing this. What is your 43 years of experience, not only as a pilot, but a flight instructor too, telling you about what could have gone wrong and made this happen tonight?
This is a very, very sad incident because it happened so suddenly and without apparently any warning whatsoever. Information from FlightAware indicates that this is a MedJet's flight number 56, a Learjet 55, which departed Northeast Philadelphia Airport to the southwest and traveled no further than about 1 nautical mile. Here we have a photograph of an example aircraft, a Lear Model 55. This is not the actual airplane that crashed, but this is what the jet would look like. It is a very high-performing corporate jet. It is well suited for air ambulance work, so the application of this airplane on this occasion is appropriate. And then we see on the data from FlightAware only 3 radar hits across a period of time of only 31 seconds of flight. The airplane is climbing at over 2,200 feet per minute, which is what I would expect from a Learjet, but then it disappears suddenly and catastrophically at about 1,400 feet above the ground, elevation out there being around 200 feet above sea level. My first impression of what may have happened here, pure speculation on my part, is some sort of catastrophic mechanical failure, probably due to deferred, cheapened, or neglected maintenance.
Oh my! Now, so what you're looking at, the evidence suggests that the plane broke apart in air. Is that why it would lose, I guess, connectivity with radar?
Correct. It was a sudden catastrophic explosion in midair. And that's why I'm inclined to think that there would be no advance warning of what happened here. There was no call on the air traffic control audio back to the tower explaining any sort of a problem whatsoever. The airplane was cleared for takeoff. It took off routinely, and we do not hear from it again.
Well, from what you say, it sort of lends, I guess there is some credence to be lent to that, because we've had a lot of small plane crashes around here. And in every instance where the pilots know something is happening, it's obvious they are doing everything they can to steer their aircraft away, despite knowing they're going to pass, to keep it away from populated areas. And there was no opportunity, it seems, for that to happen in this case.
None at all. It appears that the airplane is following the extended center line of the runway, as we can see here on FlightAware, and it just disappeared in midair, disintegrated in midair.
Now, we can see from the video that we've been sharing on the ground, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, the ground's wet. Obviously, it was raining up there, but to your point, it doesn't appear that weather really played any role in what happened. Less than 30 seconds after takeoff, as you say, catastrophic failure.
Yes, the ceiling and visibility was poor, but certainly within the capabilities of the equipment of the airplane, and I would expect within the capabilities of the pilots flying. We can see from this image here that the airplane flew the extended center line of the runway for about a mile and then disappeared in flight. I can only hope and pray that the impact on the ground did not victimize people on the ground. But this crew would have had absolutely no warning of what's happening here and no opportunity to steer the airplane away from anything. This airplane just disintegrated in flight in solid instrument meteorological conditions. There were the clouds, and very tragic.
Robert Katz, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. We very much are in your debt. Thank you again.
Yeah, I like that pilot flight instructor. He has exhibits. He comes with receipts.
I'm sorry, what was that, Joe?
I said I like that pilot flight instructor and his exhibits. He brought receipts, presentations, like showed us, like graphs. He showed us a graph. Yeah.
It's always nice when they do that, because then the visuals may help you understand better,
Absolutely, they do me. I've got to have visuals.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of us do at this point. A lot of us do.
Yeah, and he was clear. He said, I can't say for sure, but I believe it was due to probably poor maintenance and upkeep, something that was neglected.
And that's not that's not good for a military Black Hawk helicopter.
No, not the Black Hawk. No, this was the medical transport Learjet.
Oh, the medical transport. That's right. I had it mute out because the kids got loud again, but I sent them off. That's right. So if there was no weather issues involved, then yeah. If they don't determine pilot error, then it had to be some sort of maintenance issue.
Yeah, they gave a live briefing on it this morning. I didn't want to tune into that necessarily live. Maybe we'll replay it later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another like 2 and 3 days, 2 and 3 nights, and that was a horrific explosion on the ground. I mean, I saw some footage where there were houses on fire and stuff. I've got to close out some of my windows, or I'm not going to be able. Oh gosh. All right, we'll go from right to left. See, so yesterday was rainy with low visibility. Right. I 30 seconds after crash, was it weather related or maintenance related? I guess we'll find out when the National Transportation Safety Board does their investigation. The same company had a fatal crash in 2023 in Mexico. Ooh. So it was a Mexican plane registered in Mexico. They were transporting the patient and mom back to Mexico. So they got flown up to Philadelphia for some specialized medical treatment.
Right. And there's no telling what kind of records Mexico makes those kind of aircrafts maintain, those companies, or if there's follow-ups with inspections and, you know what I mean? All the things that should happen to determine them safe
Right.
and deemed safe for the sky.
Well, they have
whatever
even,
the protocols are.
right. And they have even less resources than the U.S. does, than most people in the U.S. have for maintaining those planes. So.
Oh yeah, and they may not have as many regulations. I don't know.
Right.
I'm guessing.
Right. So we'll follow that case, and if we find out more information, we'll touch on it again next week. I'm sure we will. I'll go back and look at the press conference they're doing this morning on it, the live coverage in Philadelphia. With the size of that fireball, and I saw some buildings on fire there in some of the video footage, I have a hard time believing that there weren't any casualties on the ground. That looked like a busy street / road. And I'm sure he tried to land it in his, not landed in the residential buildings, but he couldn't, keep the plane up long enough to get out of the residential area. So moving on to the next topic, Lori Daybell's jury selection is supposed to start March 31st, and Court TV filed to have a camera in the courtroom. 1 casualty on the ground, 19 injured. Yeah, that's a lot of injured people, but I mean, the size of that fireball in that location, 1 casualty probably. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that getting burnt, like there are 2 ways that I don't want to die. One of them is drowning, and one of them is getting burnt alive. I mean, at a certain point, when you're talking about 3rd-degree burns plus, over more than 40-50% of your body, I mean, your nerves are dead at that point, and a lot of times those burn victims don't feel anything till later, and they'll hang on for a while, but that's a horrible way to go. That is a horrible way to go.
It's very painful.
So Lori Daybell, the state filed a request. Let's pull that up real quick.
This is a state filing?
Yes, this is a state filing, and it's a request.
Okay, cool.
That's a quote unquote, but it has the same effect as a motion because the judge has to rule on it, right?
Right. Okay.
All right. So
maybe in Arizona, it's a request. Arizona's like, we just request this.
Right.
All right.
Oh, electrical burns. Yeah. My little corgi grand fur baby chewed through an electrical cord once, and he started going into spasms, and had to give him emergency medical treatment on site at that time immediately. Started having seizures and then got taken to the vet, and he ended up recovering from it fine, but his mouth was burnt for quite a while from chewing through that electrical cord. And he almost crossed the Rainbow Bridge early in his young life.
Right? I mean, I guess he learned not to do that no more.
I sure hope so. He hasn't done it since, but they also
Right.
they also keep the electrical cords out of his reach for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I've had dogs do it, but to do it to something that wasn't plugged in. Like one time my mom was staying at my house. Well, she was there for a couple weeks, but while she was there, she had her heating pad with her, and my dog chewed through the cord. And she went to go plug that thing in, and she was so furious. She's like, "Oh, my heating pad!" I was like, "Oh shit, we better run to the store."
All right. So this motion from the state filed January 28th, 4:58 p.m. in the Superior Court of State of Arizona and for the County of Maricopa, the State of Arizona versus Lori N. Daybell, previously Lori N. Vallow. So she is officially now Lori N. Daybell. These are both cases are cited on here, which is interesting because she's only being tried on the 2021 case starting in March. And the other one, it was the one she filed her handwritten motion for dismissal for lack of speedy trial on.
Yeah. I just noticed this comment from Brooklyn. Her reporting. Brooklyn is reporting live from Brookie News Network. We appreciate it. And Joe's going to get you that press pass. We do appreciate the updates, guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was not nearly as familiar with it before as I am now. Good morning, Love Tina. Thanks for joining us. The state's requested limitations, RE, Court TV Media Request, assigned to the Honorable Justin Bereski, Division CRJ 25, State of Arizona, through undersigned counsel. Was advised on January 25th, 2025 that Court TV submitted a request to the Maricopa County Superior Court to live stream the trial for these cases on the web and to distribute the live stream. The state does not object to cameras in the courtroom during the trial, but requests the court preclude any media filming, photographing, or recording these trials during jury selection. The presence of media filming, photographing, or recording during voir dire may inhibit jurors from expressing their honest opinions and could result in a jury that is not impartial. Yeah, I could see that. That's a decent
I didn't
argument.
think that I agree with it. I wonder what the standard in Arizona is for that. I mean, I don't feel like they should record that part. They should transcript it for a court record, obviously. But do we need to see that part? No. Because I think it probably would intimidate some jurors, don't you?
Yeah, either intimidate or entice them to not be honest in their responses so they can be in the
Right.
media spotlight on that jury and get a book deal after it's over and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can agree with this state filing.
The first part of it, the second part, I'm torn on because it's how they did it for the hearings in December. The state also requests the court preclude the trial from being live streamed.
No. Why? What is the point? Arizona, why y'all trying to follow Indiana? Y'all don't y'all know they're catching hell for this? Damn, they need to all adopt what Florida has done.
If the media accidentally films a juror or any conversations at the bench while live streaming, Court TV would not be able to stop the public from seeing the juror. Yes, they would.
Well, people have an issue with Court TV because Court TV wants to act like a fool. Judge in the Koberger case warned them in the very beginning. You can have pull, and so they did. But they kept zooming in on Koberger and zooming in on Koberger, and the judge warned them, "Don't do that." Guess what they did during the next hearing? zoomed right in, and we're all watching going, oh, holy shit, court TV, you're going to get us banned from this trial. So then Judge is like, you know what? Fixed camera situation. Just like they did in Leticia Stock case. You know, we do that in Florida. You give us a fixed camera, the judge can operate it. You don't even have to see the jurors. You don't even have to see them on camera at all. You know,
Yeah,
there's just so many things they can do. So court TV needs to stop acting a fool and making it harder for everybody else. Let News Nation, or I'm sorry, East Idaho News go in there with the pool camera. How about that, court TV?
Well, they also messed with Judge Gall up during the pretrial hearings.
Yeah.
They were broadcasting during off the record moments. They continued broadcasting, and she shut it all down for the entire hearings and trial after that. Nothing after that.
I mean,
That was
they act
Court
like, you
TV
know,
that did
those,
that.
right. Well, they act like they got to get those visuals to entice and draw in those viewers when the trial alone is enough. If we're watching because we want the truth in that trial, we're not watching. I'm not watching for all that dramatic stuff, you know, zooming in on this person. Of course, I may be watching the defendant to see how they're reacting to certain things being said. But I don't need you to zoom full on it. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. So there's so many remedies to this, I think. So hopefully the judge will say, you know what, I got this. Let me do it my way. And they
We'll
did it in
see.
Idaho with Chad Daybell's trial. Because remember, Lori's wasn't televised there because she didn't want it. So we got the transcripts. But Chad's was televised in Idaho. And it was a fixed camera on the defense and prosecution tables. You couldn't even see the jurors. So, yeah, there's remedies. Fix it.
Well, that happened in Karen Reed too. They showed a juror. We didn't know immediately why she shut down the live, but then we figured out by going back and rewatching it that the camera did show a juror partially walking to the jury box. So she's like, shut it down, but she only shut it down for the rest of the day. Then she had them back up the next day.
Yeah, I'm sure they were reprimanded for it and warned, and do it again, you're out, you know.
Good morning, Rebecca Ann. Good to see you.
Yeah, good morning. And I haven't said good morning to Forrest, the most amazing mod on the planet. Sorry, all mods, but I'm partial. Can't help it.
Oh, boy. So the last thing I have on my plate for today is a little bit of a dive into Delphi. We've been hearing a lot about Ron Logan, and we've been hearing about it because he was included in his confession, or supposed confession was included in the latest defense filing. So a lot of people are going down the Ron Logan rabbit hole, and I don't want to do a deep dive into it, but I do kind of want to do a Rorschach blot test. And you guys watch a couple of the interviews with him and see if you can think opposite of how you feel about him now. Like, do you feel like he's guilty now? I know there's a creator out there that is 100% convinced that he's the bad guy, that he did this thing. And a lot of people are like, no, he was cleared. He was investigated and cleared. The FBI served a search warrant on his house, and I think maybe even twice. So, yeah. But first,
it was twice. He was searched twice.
But before we do that, I want to give a little tribute to Abby and Libby. I want to take you back to my boots on the ground on last October 31st. And if you remember right, I started out on the parking spot way up on the west end of the Monon High Bridge Trail, and I walked down and I lost signal there. Like, you know, a few hundred yards into the woods, I lost signal. My live stream went blue. And I got my live stream back right when I got to their memorial. So I'm just going to take you back to that right now. I know the quality is not the best, but and yeah, let's just take a little trip back in time. I have the volume off because I annoy myself listening to myself. So walking down the trail, doing the live, and then it comes back right here, right when I get to their memorial. shaky camera, but a very, very sobering moment. And isn't it amazing that I got my live stream back right when I got there?
Yeah.
And there,
Remember the dove? Remember the dove? And I remember when you saw the dove and everything, and
the cardinal.
The cardinal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's right. And
Yeah.
it was a surreal moment when you took us there.
Now I want to. So back in the very beginning of this, everybody was trying to find out who Bridge Guy was, or who the bad guy was, who the killer was. Most of us were sure, based on what the police were telling us, that Bridge Guy is probably the killer. But they still, well, the jury thought he was too, and thought. But other people looked at the family. They looked at Mike Patty. They looked at Ron Logan because it was on his property. And I'm going to play an interview with Mike Patty, who is Libby's grandpa. Libby's grandpa, Mike Patty. Just as a little further tribute, he and Becky are the ones that built Abby and Libby Memorial Park, which is the softball park north of town there, north of the Monon High Bridge Trail. But this was 7 years ago, so this is like right after it happened. Not right after, but within weeks after it happened. So I thought this was touching too.
My name's Mike Patty. I'm the grandfather of Liberty German. Just got off of a bike ride coming out of Delphi that I was done in her and Abby's honor. That was a pretty awesome experience. Thousands of people were in attendance. So normally I could go things from the cuff, but my mind's been a blur of these last few days. So I took the time to write some things down that I want to make sure I get out there to the people and make this.
See, some people were saying, oh, he could be Bridge Guy. I mean, look at those similarities. I don't believe it for a second, but I mean, people did.
Yeah, it's always been rumored out there with those who follow that, but I don't buy it.
I don't buy it for a second.
Make this statement. So I raised Liberty since she was 3 years old. We've had her in our home. My wife and I's relationship with her has been deeply sown with love, as we're allowed to play two roles in her life, both grandparents and parents. She's the love of our life. We're a very tight-knit family with love pouring throughout our lives. There's not a day that goes by this was not shared between us. Our minds at this stage are stirred in the deepest sorrow one can imagine. It is my sincere hope that no one experiences what my family is going through at this time. Liberty was taken away from us, and this will be a void that will forever leave a hole in our souls. Yet we find strength in our faith in God and our Lord Jesus Christ. The outpouring support from our family, friends, neighbors, local community across the state, the nation, and even across other continents is unlike anything we've ever observed. With all the kind words shared with my family, we have yet to find the one statement that will take this horrible pain away. As I remember Liberty, she was so active and full of life, involved in every sport she could play: soccer, softball, volleyball, and swimming. She was extremely smart, taking all high ability classes and maintaining an A average. She had a love for music and played the saxophone in the band and would often pick at a guitar in her room. What we would give to hear some of those off-key notes today. Her favorite class was science. She was determined to play a part in the field of sciences. Many times we discussed what she wanted to be when she grew up. It always circled back to science. From crafty projects she did to strange experiments she was doing, always asking me to make her something from wood, plastic, or whatever, so she could run off to her room and turn it into something special. The hundreds and thousands of texts, emails, phone calls, and thoughts are welcomed and do help us travel down this path of grief. While we work to thank everyone for their support personally, I apologize if we do not reach out to you, as this is so overwhelming we cannot keep up Therefore, we offer this statement as a token of my family's sincere appreciation for all the sympathy expressed upon us. We're thankful for the rapid response and professionalism displayed by local area fire departments, EMS, other emergency response personnel who answered the call. We're also thankful for those who helped us in searching for Liberty and Abigail. We're thankful to friends, neighbors, coworkers, perfect strangers, called off work and spent all night searching the area with our family, merely because they felt compelled to help. We're grateful for you all. While our law enforcement officials have combined efforts and are diligently working to solve the case and bring some closure, please know if anyone out there has any information, however small it may seem, please reach out to these officials so the person or persons responsible for this.
What is it that camera people have with having to zoom in and out and zoom in and out? Like, this camera person's all over the place with their zooms. They like keep bumping it.
Can be swiftly apprehended. If you know anything that may help support our search for answers, we invite you to call 844-459-5786. With Liberty's life taken from our world way too early, there are some things we'd like to do and honor her life. We are working to create a scholarship fund to help others seek to further their education.
Now he's zooming down in on the sheet that he's reading from. That's just weird to me. Why would you do that? Do camera operators have ADHD? Like they can't just sit still?
As Liberty was committed to doing the same by pursuing a college education, we also want to honor her by supporting the sports programs she loved. To honor her both memory and passion for these things, we've established a GoFundMe account available at gofundme.com/Liberty-German. Thank you again for your thoughts and prayers. May Liberty and Abigail rest in peace.
So that's that. May Liberty and Abigail rest in peace. So yeah, like I said, people suspected him being Bridge Guy, say he could be similar. But I don't see I have never seen or heard anything other than, oh, he looks similar to Bridge Guy. He's got like the same facial hair, the same facial structure, but nothing ties him. And I'm sure he probably had his alibi checked. I don't know that for sure, though. I was sure that a few other alibis were checked too, and I was wrong there. So yeah, right, Pokemon. That camera was just weird. All right, so now we're going to watch. Let's take a look at the latest filing from the defense, just on as it relates to Ron Logan and Ricky Davis's claim that he confessed to him. So this was filed January 20th, 2025. Defendants Exhibit 4, the affidavit of Matthew Hoffman. The affiant, Matthew Hoffman, upon his oath under penalty for perjury, says, I am an investigator who has worked for the lawyers representing Richard Allen. Included in the discovery provided by the state to the defense was a tip. So it was included in the discovery provided by the state. Was a tip regarding Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, Department of Corrections number 114393 at the Newcastle Correctional Facility sometime before May 15, 2017. That tip was designated on the Orion tip file dated December 4th, 2023 as investigative thread 8578 and appears at pages 776 to 777 of the PDF of the Orion tip file. Exhibit 4A. So that was investigative thread number 8578, and it's on page 776 of that. So in other words, it was buried in the mountains of discovery, but they did get it from the state. Exhibit 4A is a redacted version of that tip about Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis. So that's what it looks like to me. It looks like they received it, but it was buried in the mountains of discovery, and now they're bringing it.
And that's what I was wondering. How far was this something they just got like during trial, toward the end of trial, right before trial? So this mountains of stuff that's buried is insane.
Yeah. Hey, Tina, to answer your question, wasn't Keegan on the other end of that bridge? Supposedly, they did cell phone extractions for him and his dad, Tony, and their phones were supposedly at their house during the time when the girls were unalived. But I think that was during the state's timeline, not necessarily any time after 3:30 p.m. on the 13th. So if they were unalived on a different time, do we know where their cell phones were at different times? I don't know. But as far as being on the south end of the bridge that day, their cell phones weren't there. That doesn't mean they weren't there, but their cell phones weren't there, according to law enforcement investigators.
Yeah, and the thing about Klein is if you need a fall guy, he's the perfect fall guy. Considering what he was doing, who he was doing it to. I mean, I have to go to that every time I set up. Like, what the hell? But we've not seen any proof that Klein was down there, but that does not mean that he wasn't. So, like Joe said.
Yeah, we have their cell phones weren't there. That's all we know for certain, according to the law enforcement investigators. Extraction during a specific period of time.
Yeah, well, and according to that geo fence that we're not allowed to see, we don't really know who was there and who wasn't, do we?
Yeah. Exhibit 4B accurately reproduces the handwritten notes taken by Indiana State Police First Sergeant Hansard about his interview with Ricky Davis on June 21st, 2017 at the Newcastle Correctional Facility. Handwritten notes. Ricky Davis's handwritten note is attached. Oh, am I going to have to pull those up? Or can we just agree that we've seen them and they say that Ron Logan confessed to Ricky Davis?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I mean, it's up to you. It's your show, but I mean, I know what they said. But in case the audience, you might can just give a brief. Well, like you said, Ron did confess, but they may want more
Ricky
specific.
Ricky Davis told the investigator that Ron Logan confessed to him. We don't actually have that confession, and we can't ask Ron Logan about it now. There's Exhibit 4C. Stand by me here for a second. I'm pulling up these notes. Well, it's spelled out in the motion to correct error, right? Let's find it in that. Yeah, let's find it in that. We kind of did a little bit of a yes. Go ahead.
Joe, I'm gonna jump down for a minute, but I gotta answer a quick call, but I'm gonna come right back up in just a few minutes. It won't be long. Okay.
All right. I'll bore everybody with this motion to correct.
It won't. I'll be listening for that, but I have it on the computer. But I'll make a quick call and I'll be back in a minute.
All righty.
All right. Thanks.
Motion to correct error comes now. The defendant by counsel. Mr. Allen was deprived of counsel at the safekeeping proceeding. We've gone over that. Post-transfer hearing, right of inmate to refuse transfer. We went over that. If it's just for his own safety, then he had the right to refuse transfer to Westville. But he wasn't there and his attorney wasn't there. So that's the safekeeping order. Had no opportunity to exercise his right to transfer. Is a violation of the Sixth Amendment to completely deprive a defendant of counsel at any critical stage of a criminal prosecution. So his Sixth Amendment rights were violated. Due process of the 14th Amendment, the state presented the testimony of Brad Weber, that Mr. Weber, okay, so that's the 14th Amendment of them knowingly putting on a false statement and not correcting it. Mr. Allen said he was on the south side of Deer Creek and was planning on, that's the state's argument. All right, somewhere in here. So there's that white van of Mr. Weber's. We've gone over that in detail. Here we go. Item number 2, Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis before May 15, 2017 is newly discovered evidence entitling Mr. Allen to a new trial. So this is February, March, April, May, 3 months exactly after the girls were found. Well, 3 months and a day after the girls were found. So they investigated Ron Logan and found out that he had violated the terms of his probation or just his sentencing for multiple DUIs. So he had multiple DUIs, and he eventually was given a lifetime ban from driving anything, and he wasn't even supposed to have a vehicle on his property. Like the judge ordered that. And so they found he was in violation of that, and they sent him off to Newcastle, which is a state prison. He wasn't just going to jail. He went to state prison. Apparently Ricky Davis was his cellmate. So Defendant's Exhibit 4A, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman in Defendant's Exhibit 4, is a redacted copy of a tip from the Orion database. We just read that. Ron Logan is alleged to have confessed to Ricky Davis sometime before May 15, 2017, while they were in prison together, that he had killed Liberty German LG and AW. Hold on one second here, guys. I gotta also answer one of my boys. Sorry. Give me 1 second. See, that's why you got to have two people on here, so you can like tag team when you get text from your kids. Defendant's Exhibit 4A. There we go. The alleged confession. The material part of Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, as it appears in 4A, is reproduced below. Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis, as reflected in the tip in the Orion database and made a mere 3 months after the girls were killed, was detailed. Law enforcement followed up on the tip. Defendant's Exhibit 4B, as attested to by Matthew Hoffman in Exhibit 4, accurately reproduces the handwritten notes taken by ISP Sergeant Hansard about his interview with Ricky Davis. So he interviewed Ricky Davis in June of 2017 regarding the confession. Those handwritten notes of First Sergeant Hansard are attached in the lead narrative summary cover sheet that was provided to the defense in discovery. First Sergeant Hansard's notes of his interview with Ricky Davis about Ron Logan's confession provide even more detail. It seems to say, talking about knowing one of their dads to walk with them. One of them wanted to turn around, grab the younger one's shoulder. So that would have been Abby. It's okay. The older one freaked out. One said something about calling the police, and the essay wasn't true. Originally was not trying to go are them. He was paranoid about his probation. So he was on probation. So his probation violations are what sent him to prison. He felt like he crossed the line when he grabbed the youngest one. He started talking ironic. They should have been in school. He knew one of their moms waitressed at a bar, and since he had multiple DUIs, he probably knew all the bartenders or waitresses at the bars because there aren't that many of them in Delphi. And that was Abby's mom, Ann Williams. I think that was her name. Animals walked with them, willing to go check out the horses. Oh, so he was luring them with the rabbits and horses. Walked through the trail in the woods. The only trail in the woods would either be to the creek or from the creek. And the oldest was paranoid, didn't want to go. The youngest wanted to see the horses. So we may also listen to Down the Hill, but first we're going to listen to a couple of the interviews with him. And if you think he's not guilty, then try and look at these interviews like maybe he is. And if you think he is, then maybe look at him like he's not. But I don't remember seeing any of these interviews. Well, because he wasn't in prison. So we heard all of these interviews before we heard about this confession. And we only heard about this confession because of this filing from the defense. So kind of leans. So here's another page of the notes. The oldest turned to help the youngest. The oldest started looking, kicking. The youngest seemed. He now grabs the older one. So that's Libby. He said he got hit on the nose. He got scared. He got blood on one of the girls. He pulled out the box cutter and did that thing. The youngest was scarred, took Abby with him for a while. Never said where, but his house in Barnes right there. He said he did more violence, but he is mentioning wounds that match how they were killed. He left again, came back later in the evening. The search was going on later on, late hours, tried to move the oldest one to an area where she was not going to be found. Place where the four-wheelers go, which would be on that flat spot down on the north bank of the creek. Burned his clothes in the burn pile and his hiking boots, gloves, and bag. Soles of the boots would be in the burn pile the next morning. 2 girls knocked on his door asking to search his property. He couldn't say no. He let them take off. He got a hold of family members and got out of the area. That's when he took the trip down to Aquarium World in Lafayette. All right, so we see all this stuff. He's giving out details that, I mean, unless he was there when they found the girls, or he came down when he heard they found the girls, if he's not guilty, he could have possibly seen how they died, because I'm sure it was pretty obvious to somebody who was close to that. And supposedly there's a picture out there where he's standing up slightly uphill from them, but not that far away from them while the investigation is going on. Supposedly there's a picture of that he took right there, or somebody standing right next to him took right there on his property, looking would be northwest to where the girls were found. All right, so let's look at these interviews in light of this new evidence about his confession, about his detailed confession to Ricky Davis in prison 3 months after the girls were found. How is this guy not on trial? He's dead. Supposedly he was investigated by law enforcement and he was cleared. But if he made a confession when he was in prison, how did he get cleared? And how is that not a quote unquote nexus to introduce third-party evidence? I don't get it. All right, I gotta find my StreamYard. Let's stop sharing that. Let's bring Salty back up. Hey, Salty.
Hey, I'm back, and everybody's left the house except for the animals. So now it's all nice and quiet here.
All right. Let's start looking at some. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
No, before I jump back on, I went and grabbed these 2 little things I had made in the past and dropped them in Discord for you. It's not to review right this yet. You can do it at the end, but it's just Ron Logan related to what we're talking about. So.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got his girlfriend's interview in the queue, but I do want to hear Down the Hill. I do want to hear him say that one. We'll do that after we watch his other interviews.
That's fine. Just sent them over in case you wanted to use them. You got them.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. I've actually got a playlist so we can go through them and pause as we need to, but all right. So it comes in after Mike Patty's. Let me get over to that one real quick. Zoom to the next one.
New twist in the hunt for the killer of those 2 Indiana teenagers 5 years ago. It centers on this man, Ron Logan, who owned the property where the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were found. An FBI search warrant has just been released, revealing they searched Logan's home. Logan has been the focus of attention from day one. Inside Edition Stephen Fabian interviewed him in 2017.
You just cannot believe this terrible thing that happened to the community and the families actually happened here on my property in my backyard.
He claimed he had an alibi, buying tropical fish 20 miles away.
I was not home during the time that all this was happening. I was in Lafayette.
Yeah.
And I didn't get home till approximately 6:30 in the evening, and then the neighbor.
So that doesn't correspond with what the confession says. The confession says he went to Lafayette to the fish store after he got scared when he saw people were out searching for him.
The neighbor stopped, asked for permission to look back here for the girls.
Liberty German shot this chilling image of the killer approaching the girls on a hiking trail, and she recorded the killer's voice.
What do you hear on there?
Nothing that I recognize at all. No one. I don't recognize the voice at all.
Stephen asked Ron Logan to repeat those same chilling words. Listen.
Down the hill.
The newly revealed search warrant says Ron Logan's voice was not inconsistent.
Let's hear that one more
with that
time.
of the newly revealed search warrant.
Down the hill.
The newly revealed search warrant says Ron Logan's voice was not inconsistent with that of the person in the video. And that image of the suspect, the warrant declares Logan's physical build is consistent with the suspect. Logan had his own take.
The picture is of such poor quality, it doesn't look like anyone I've ever seen.
We spoke to Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee of the true crime podcast Murder Sheet. They obtained the warrant.
I'm not necessarily convinced that Ron Logan was involved in this. Some of the circumstantial evidence against him is intriguing and should absolutely be looked at.
Logan is now dead, reportedly of COVID. He was never charged in the case, and it is unclear whether he was ever considered an official suspect.
Boop, boop, boop. All right, let's do the next one.
This is a small town up there in Carroll County and still distraught over the loss of two of their own.
In fact, Eyewitness News reporter Emily Longnecker tonight continues our team coverage in Delphi with how people there continue to cope with the loss of Abby and Libby. Emily?
John and Andrea, people here in Delphi are cautious tonight about saying too much of anything. Many of them knew these two young girls and they know their families, and they are just finding it still very difficult to talk about what happened. On the outskirts of town, though, where police found the two teens' bodies, people are talking, sharing their disbelief and anger. Against the beauty of the sunshine and bright blue skies Wednesday, it was still hard for Ron Logan to believe the violence visited upon two young teens just out for a hike on a day off from school.
Who would have thought they'd let their children out to do something special that day, take a trip down, and then turn out a disaster like this?
For 53 years, Logan's lived on the country road near the trail that leads to the Monon High Bridge.
People walk up and down with their children, and yeah, it's quite a nice little trail, and the bridge is really...
Never, though, has Logan seen anything like what he has this week, the search for an eventual discovery of the bodies of Libby German and Abby Williams.
The area that they were in is very hard to get to. I mean, you can't get there unless you walk there. I mean, so...
Ooh, now that matches up with his supposed confession. Remember when that was one of the notes in those handwritten notes that said he took her to a place that he thought she wouldn't be found, that was hard to get to unless you walked there. He did say four-wheelers go there sometimes too, but I mean, that matches up almost identical with some of those notes in the confession, the alleged confession.
So somebody would be walking with them or something.
Those are the same kind of thoughts Marvin Sandifer keeps mulling over. His daughter used to hike the same trail.
She said, I've seen a couple scruffy-looking guys back in there, but, you know, they never bothered me. They went on their way.
Sandifer is anxious for investigators to identify a suspect.
I'm not really scared. I'm just worried that it would happen again.
I'm not really scared. I'm just, and this isn't Ron Logan, this is one of his neighbors. I'm not really scared. I'm just worried that it would happen again. That's really phrased really oddly. And that picture right there is Brad Weber's house up on the top middle of the screen. And you can see the Monon High Bridge down here. That's the south end of it down there. And that's that private drive that is down the first hill that goes back to Brad Weber's house.
That's why he hopes someone knows or saw something on that trail Monday and can lead investigators down the right path soon.
I hope they catch him tonight, and I hope they make him pay.
And with the release tonight of the picture of that unknown man seen walking on the trail Monday afternoon, people here are hoping investigators are that much closer to discovering who is responsible for taking these two young lives. John? Andrea?
All right. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, investigators are hoping they can find him, but then 2 years later, oh, we have a new sketch, and forget all about the first sketch. Oh, but no, you're supposed to merge the two sketches. All right, guys. All right, we got another piece coming up here. I'm trying to do some short pieces so we don't all get lost.
Turn now to developing news in the Delphi murders case. Attorneys for convicted killer Richard Allen have filed new motions to try and clear their client's name. A jury convicted Allen in November of killing Abby Williams and Libby German in 2017. Now, the motion of errors filed today questions the timeline for these murders, with new video placing the white van that spooked Richard Allen before the murders at the crime scene 15 minutes after the murders. Now, attorneys also claim that Allen's Sixth Amendment rights were violated when his attorneys weren't present at an initial hearing in 2022. And the defense is also disputing evidence from Libby's cell phone after testimony claimed the state found someone was plugged into Libby's phone after the murder and that they didn't bring it to jurors. But the biggest bombshell revealed this morning, another jailhouse confession for somebody who attorneys claim was a prime suspect from the very start.
And Dan, all of that really revolves around Ron Logan, the man who owns the property where the girls' bodies were found. And this evening, Fox 59's Max Lewis breaks down what was allegedly said inside of that jail cell in 2017.
The defense called it newly discovered evidence that is so significant and entitles Richard Allen to a new trial. It's a confession to the killings of Abby Williams and Libby German made by Ron Logan, who owned the property where the girls' bodies were found.
The confession apparently took place inside the Newcastle Correctional Facility, where Logan was serving his sentence for a probation violation. It's there that he got to talking with another inmate in his cell block, Ricky Davis. In a letter signed by Davis in June 2017, he recounted Logan's confession, writing, quote, "He told me he was the one who killed those girls, that it got out of hand. He walked with them in the woods to his property. The girls wanted to turn back and said something about calling the police." Logan apparently went on to say that he, quote, "grabbed the youngest girl to reassure her it was okay. However, they panicked and he also panicked." Logan indicated he ended up cutting the oldest with a box cutter. He went on telling me that he killed both of them because it was taken too far. At the time of that supposed confession, the fact that the girls' throats had been slit and that a box cutter was the likely murder weapon were not public knowledge.
Wait. That a box cutter was the light. We didn't learn about that till later. Till the medical examiner was messing around in his garage and he's like, "Oh, maybe it was a box cutter. Wasn't this?"
Isn't that interesting? You hadn't heard that yet, I guess. So that has made a lot of people go, huh? You know?
Yeah.
What? Why do now you got to tie this box cutter thing to Rick Allen?
Right, because he used one at CVS.
Oh, yeah, he had a job at CVS. Oh, come on. I used to work in restaurants. I had them all the time. Bring them home with me in my pocket all the time. My son's got a couple out here in the shed, I'm sure. Maybe I should get in there and do some experiments, Joe.
It might give you some inspiration on who really killed Abby and Libby.
Exactly. I'd be like, Mr. Steve out here. Let's do an experiment, y'all. That's so super interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and Pokemon, you're right. Like, that's why I say alleged confession, because we're hearing this third hand. We're hearing it from an officer who interviewed Ricky about the confession from Ron Logan.
And apparently Ron confessed this a long time ago, if it's accurate, or even a real thing. So we know how these inmates can be. They'll do and say things, sometimes try to get themselves a better deal out of things. But, did Ron say something? Because everybody's always so darn suspicious of Ron, like, lying off the bat from the word jump.
Yeah.
Like we all knew. And thank you, Rebecca, for answering the question in chat about Ron not driving, and as to why he wasn't supposed to be. So, yeah, there's just been a lot of questions. Well, he lied because he didn't have a license and didn't want the cops to know he was out driving around. Well, I'd rather come clean and say, look, I broke the law. I drove, but I didn't do what happened on my property. You made
Right.
yourself look super shady when you chose to lie. You know, I don't know.
To
And
answer
and
your
he- and-
question,
and-
Pokemon, that
go ahead.
that investigator was Matthew Hoffman, and
Yeah,
he was an investigator for the defense. Is that right?
I believe so. Hoffman was. And look, if there was anybody going to be on the south side of that bridge other than Keegan Klein, who lured them out there that morning, more than likely, because we do know that he communicated with that account of Libby's the night before and the morning of. So the only other person that could have logically been on that south end just hanging out, waiting on somebody to show up, would be Ron Logan or Brad Weber. They both live down there. It's a secluded end of the bridge. If you don't live down there, you really, are you gonna wander off too far out? I'm just saying anybody could have been on that south end waiting, but he would have been the perfect person.
Okay, no, I was wrong. Pokemon. So the investigator for the defense, Matthew Hoffman, gave an affidavit, but he gave an affidavit about the tips in the Orion database. And the tip in the Orion database was handwritten notes from ISP First Sergeant Hansard. So Hansard is the one that interviewed Ricky Davis on June 21st, 2017. So Richard Allen wasn't even a suspect at that point. They didn't look back at him until 5 years later.
Yeah, and the
So-
FBI is the one who got the search warrants for Logan's property. FBI was pretty darn convinced he did this, especially the female FBI investigator. She was pretty convinced he did it, but they couldn't get any proof that he did it. I'm assuming none of that DNA that got tested from the crime scene, if any at all did, matched him. I'm assuming that none of the multiple guns taken from his home didn't match your magical bullet. There's just a lot there with this guy, and he would have been number one suspect because they're on your property. But we were told, oh, he was investigated, he was cleared, and then I'm like, well, okay, well, if y'all are looking for a fall guy again, here's you another one. Like, it's dead. So that's where I get stumped.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you had Daniel Nations even. There were multiple suspects looked at that really could have committed these crimes outside those third parties that we kept hearing about during that were excluded from trial. Outside the Odinist gang, there were multiple people investigated for these crimes. Daniel Nations was one of them. What's his name? The guy that killed a little girl. His family alone even told the police, hey, he could have done it. But all these other people were ruled out until Kathy found that mysterious tip, chilling out in the drawer over there. And look, it says Whiteman.
Well, they
That's our
weren't ruled out until the FBI was kicked off the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I don't know when. I can't quote on when they were out. All different ones cleared at different times. You know what I mean? So I don't know who cleared them, or if it was before or after FBI was, involvement. I honestly can't tell you.
I think so even to this day, even in court, when you talk about ruling suspects out, there's a difference between eliminating them with exculpatory evidence and not having enough inculpatory evidence to prove that they were there, that any of the suspects were there. And that's pretty much 90% of the third-party suspects don't have any necessarily exculpatory evidence. Like Elvis Fields' alibi is bullcrap, and we all know it is. We were in the hospital, and so our phones wouldn't ping. We were in the hospital in Muncie or Anderson, and our phones wouldn't ping. No. Anyway, there's a difference between being exculpatorily cleared and inculpatorily not proven to be there.
Yeah,
Not
in the
enough
state of
proof.
Indiana's eyes, I'm assuming. Let me rephrase this. In the state of Indiana's eyes, all these dudes, the Saudi defense, some other dude did it. They were all cleared. However, whatever criteria they meet over there in that state to be cleared, they were cleared. And
All
that's
right.
just me being salty right now. Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, no, I hear you. I know your love for the state of Indiana.
In fact, it wasn't until the trial late last year that the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsies testified that a box cutter was the likely murder weapon.
Now, looking back, they're able to say, well, with that box cutter information, that opened the door. Once they put box cutter and they had a suspect who confessed to using a box cutter, we definitely should have been able to get into at least this other suspect.
However, Judge Fran Gall ruled that the defense team could not put forward any theories about other potential suspects. In the early days of the Delphi investigation, Logan was a prime suspect, so much so that the FBI was able to secure a search warrant for his home. It's unclear if they ever found anything connecting him to the murders, but Allen's attorneys say that confession and the details in it exculpates Mr. Allen and would probably produce a different result at a retrial.
Logan died of COVID back in 2022. The prosecution has yet to respond to these claims or any of the others made in.
Wow. Ron Logan died the same year that they arrested Richard Allen, right?
Yeah.
It was October. It was September, supposedly September of 2022.
Yes.
When Kathy Shank found that lead sheet and turned it over to Liggett, and they did an interview, and then they did a second interview, and they arrested him after the second interview. I need to know when Ron Logan date of death. Let's Google that real quick. August 30th. Oh no, that's a different guy. That's a different guy. But
at the end of the pandemic, it takes him out.
Yeah, there's a Ron Logan at the University of Central Florida that died right before, a couple weeks before Richard Allen was arrested, and I was like, oh my gosh, Ron.
Say that 3 times real fast, right?
Oh, he died. This says he died in January of 2020. I wonder what's true. All right. Anyway, so we have an interview with his girlfriend too. Just they asked her opinion whether he could be the guy. So let's listen to the interview of his ex-girlfriend. I don't know if she was his girlfriend at the time or was an ex-girlfriend.
She was his ex.
Police made this tragic discovery.
She's an ex. She is the ex-girlfriend, and she lived there for a little while. If this is the same one?
Yeah. Oh wait,
Connie?
we've got one more Ron Logan interview. It's how long is this? Oh, it's only a couple minutes long. Let's watch this whole thing.
Has been coming to terms, I should say, with a painful reality. Eyewitness News reporter David McAnally went back to the scene of the crime today, where neighbors still don't understand how this could happen to 2 young girls. Dave?
As police continue a very methodical investigation here, going down every road in the search for clues, some folks who live near the crime scene, they fear that their road will never be the same. The crime scene Thursday, a place property owner Ron Logan knows well, but never thought he would know for something so tragic.
I can't really wrap my emotions around it yet. It's so mind-boggling. I haven't really caught up. It hasn't caught up with me yet.
Up and down the hills, across that bank now circled with crime tape, his son grew up playing here.
Never in your wildest dreams do you think that he comes down here to play, he won't come back home.
He and his friends grieved for the victims, Liberty German and Abigail Williams, both 13.
That's why we come back. He goes, I want to show you what it looks like. You couldn't carry someone up and down these hills, or it's hard to walk by yourself.
We've been able to identify almost everybody else that's been on that trail, and this gentleman has not been identified, and we want to know what he saw, what he might have seen on the trail. Did he see somebody else that maybe some of the others didn't see?
The sheriff's department says the trail photos of a man released Wednesday have brought in about 200 tips, and they're checking every one of them, they say.
Why did they word that trail photos? That's interesting wording, because that's supposedly from Libby's phone, not from a trail cam. Maybe they just meant the Monon High Bridge trail.
Police want to talk to the man because he was on the trail about the same time as the victims.
I think they feel confident that we're going to get this guy or guys that were involved in this, and I think they're feeling confident that it's going to happen sooner than later.
Back at the crime scene, hoping for answers.
This place is never going to be the same. It'll never be the same, will it?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody will be. They'll be very vigilant now, from here on out when they come down here.
Boy, he sure knew where that trail was to get back to his house from down there. That looked like a well-worn trail. Let's watch them walking up it again.
Oh, you know it is.
Same. It'll never be the same, will it?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody will be. They'll be very vigilant
That is a
now
well-worn
from here
trail.
on out when they come down here.
All right, that's David McAnally tonight in Delphi.
Joining me now, News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton. So Connie Dillman seems so confident about this. Like, what else makes her think that it's her ex-boyfriend who's the killer?
Yeah, this was a big moment tonight, actually. We've never heard from Connie Dillman before. This is all brand new. So this is something we've never heard before. And let's also not forget in all this that Ron Logan is dead, by the way, for people who are following along. He died of COVID. But she basically says that he is a bad man, that he is a violent man, that she thinks that he did it, that he was violent with her in the past. And as you heard in that clip, that when she heard that voice, she thought right away that it was Ron Logan. Listen to a little more of what she said for the first time tonight about what kind of man this is.
Yeah, trigger warning, people. Sorry, I didn't give a trigger warning before this. This is very graphic and it's very disturbing and
Sensitive topic.
And a sensitive topic. And to be honest, I believe you. This does not seem like somebody just interjecting themselves into the conversation. I mean,
Oh, no. Like she
body
said,
language. Yeah.
she made that call early on about his possibility of being the bridge guy based on the videos she saw in the media. So she did do that. That was, so there was no tip like that called in about Rick Allen, but there was tips like that called in about Ron Logan. And I have no reason to not believe what Connie is saying. And I've seen multiple interviews with her. Like I've said, I've made some shorts about it, and I don't discredit her at all.
Yeah, her, once again, I know you don't like the body language expert type of analysis because people can fool you on that, but she's making direct eye contact. Her eye movements are doing visual recall of the incident that she's talking about. And
Well, those types of things I don't have a problem with. It's the ones that, they touched their face. Like, well, maybe they had an itch. Like the touching of the face, I can't. But all the technical stuff I can get down with. But when it comes to, little twerks that people have and quirkiness about them, yeah, whatever.
It really is stunning to hear her tell that story for the first time. She's obviously very, very emotional. And again, she feels confident, Connie does, that the wrong guy may be locked up, which is pretty startling to think about.
Not only that, but Ron Logan had kind of a weird alibi. And from what I remember 7 years ago, it didn't really check out.
So weird. So he claimed to police that he was going to a town outside of Delphi to buy tropical fish and that he was with his cousin. But we later come to find out that when they looked into this, they talked to the cousin. The cousin didn't back that up. They were never able to clear that alibi, to figure out if it was true or not. And even to this day, it seems like he lied about where he went.
Pretty specific when you're mentioning tropical
Yeah.
fish, and easy to track that. But this is a small community, and they're not used to having double homicides, especially with kids. So, I mean, I've seen it happen. All right. So, what about the property? Like, they did look at his property. They actually did investigate, but I feel like it might have been a long lag.
They did, but it was a month after the murders. So think about it. A month has gone by. There's so much that could have been done out there at that property in that time. A month.
And the FBI got that
A month is a
warrant,
long
not
time
the
for
locals.
anything.
Right.
I mean, even the weather.
What was that?
I said, and the FBI is the one that got that warrant a month later, not the local authorities. Why? When they were found on someone's private property, immediately there should have been a search warrant conducted of that property owner's home, because that alone's probable cause all day long and twice on Sunday.
100%. Unless you're the Carroll County Sheriff's Office.
Well, through that.
At that property.
Regarding the Aquarium World alibi also.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a strange, oddly specific alibi, like he mentioned, but we do have a receipt from that purchase, I believe, if I remember right.
He did. He did go to the fish store. It was a legit story, but he drove himself. The whole thing about it was he drove himself to the fish store, right? And they know when he did it, they got all the proof that he did do that. But then he had told authorities his cousin drove him. He called his cousin and even asked him, I need you to lie for me and say you drove me to the fish store. And the cousin told on him.
Yeah.
So that's how that all happened.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then people excused it and said, well, he didn't, he threw his cousin under the bus as an alibi because he didn't want to admit that he was driving. So I actually bought into that okay, the reason that his but the time on the receipt wasn't like around 5:30 or 6 p.m.
The time on the receipt would, because he tried to say he wasn't home at the time he was over there, but it didn't match. The timeline did not match up.
Right.
And there's some of we've heard his phone was around that property that night around 10:30 p.m. back there somewhere. I'd love to know that geofencing information and see how much of Ron Logan's phones. And they're going to say, oh, well, of course it's pinging in the geofence. He lives there.
But some people said that his phone was actually near where the girls' bodies were found, like a more specific location than just like on his property. It was
but he was within feet of the crime scene. But those are allegations that, we don't even know that we're true or not. So, but yes, that was the reports. Like, we haven't seen a lot of the Ron Logan phone data stuff. But I'd had to go back and relook at the search warrants again on those and review them to really get what they said again, because I haven't looked at them in so long. But yeah, there he was. Allegedly, he was very close to the crime scene around 2:30. And then again around 10:30.
Right.
So all
and
this stuff is stacking
his
up.
confession. Yeah. In his confession, he said he took the girls there later, but Libby was killed at that scene due to the amount of blood that was found there. She was killed at the scene. Abby.
And that matches up to what he said.
Right.
He tried to calm the younger one down that, Abby's not going to take, or Libby's not having it. You take care of Libby right there, but then do you take Abby back to your place and then take her back out there later? Because in my mind, those girls were never harmed there, taken away, brought back. Who can get them back in there without being seen or heard, especially before the search was called off? Who's going to know for sure the searchers have all left the area unless you're participating in the search, which is a possibility. But Ron Logan would know when all the activity decreases around the property from the search warrant.
Absolutely.
Searchers.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we can do more of a deep dive on this. That wasn't supposed to be the intention of my morning show. We're almost 2 hours long now. Is there anything else? Go ahead.
And no, I haven't. I'm just getting caught up like you are here on this. I've been working on the other stuff with the co-burger stuff that's been coming down, and I'm about to eat some lunch and enjoy the rest of my peaceful day at home alone. Like, I love my Saturdays like this, but I'm preparing for tomorrow morning's show. We're gonna have a couple of special guests, so looking forward to Salty Sunday. And we'll be having an
Nice.
Idaho 4 discussion. Yeah, it'll be an Idaho 4 discussion. So we're going to deep dive a couple of things there.
Good deal. I always learn when I join your Idaho 4 lives and your deep dives. I always learn so much.
Well,
like even just what we did offline last night after your live, and getting on Google Earth and looking at the angle of that camera where the guy was dropping stuff in the dumpster.
Yes.
I mean,
It helps. Yeah. And that's what I spoke with Dolphin about briefly too. There are a lot of people coming in new to the case who don't know a lot of the back stuff. And so she'll be joining us on Sunday as well. But we also have another special guest returning. We've had Forensic Frenzy on before, and she's going to be back on with us again on Sunday. And she and I and Dolphin, we pretty much know the case inside and out. We are always learn new stuff, obviously, but so I feel like it's going to be a great show, and we're gonna take a look at some of those warrants, a little closer look. So hope everybody can tune in for it. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it for sure. Hold on, I got to drop your link in here, but I've got to find it first.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's already. I posted it up this morning. That way, hopefully, people can see it that are our members. That sub up. They'll see it when because I'm not sure how these notifications are going out for everybody. Some are saying they're getting them, some aren't getting them. So I thought, well, let me set it up earlier than I normally do and see if that helps. So.
Well, there's Salty's channel. If you're not subbed up yet, make sure you sub up and join us for Salty Sunday tomorrow. Judge Bebb making 2 rulings in favor of the defense yesterday. That's definitely something that we're going to talk about. If I know you don't like that case, you don't like the Karen Reed case, so I'll cover it next week.
I do like it. I'm just waiting for them. There was something new that came down that I did save to watch later. Because I do intend to watch the second trial. That first one was such a hot mess. I'm like, and plus I was so much going on with Delphi. I just didn't want brain overload. So, but I have followed it loosely online, of course. So I'm getting interested. So that'd be great.
All right. Good deal.
All
We've
right.
got lots to talk about. Thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate it very much. Salty, I'm glad we found you without having to send out a search and rescue crew.
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you. Anyway, thanks for joining Joe's morning show here, and give him a like on your way out if you haven't already. And you guys have a great rest of your day.
Have a great weekend all. See you later.